Hey, thanks for joining me online for this. It's all a bit mad. The reception we should have had for my residency exhibit in Apalachicola for the Forgotten Coast paint out has been shifted to an online reception because I'm here alone at the moment shooting this in the HCA. We should have had a lovely evening with drinks and musicians and stories, and it would have been absolutely wonderful. But this is the best we can do, and I'm dying to tell you all about the work, so we're just going to do it online instead. So thank you for being here. So to begin with, I should explain the project itself. I was invited to come and be an artist in residence for the Forgotten Coast. They do their paint out on plein air every year, but they also invite painters to come and make extra projects during the year. And this year I was really honoured they invited me to come and paint. I got to pick my project because the one I was supposed to do didn't work out. And I wanted to do something that was more positive, something that perhaps wasn't based on the aftermath of the hurricane, something that was about people who are looking forward, working together, something that was really about community. The theme this year was people. And on previous visits, I'd met some really cool bands and musicians, and I just felt there was something to be said about the music industry here and the music community more than industry, I think. So I got in touch with a couple of musicians. The board agreed, they supported me, and I have to say a huge thank you to the Forgotten Coast Cultural Coalition for supporting this residency and making it possible for me to come over here, and also to the HCA for hosting my exhibition. So it's been a fantastic project, and I've had so much fun with it. It's just been brilliant. So I'm going to talk through some of the stuff I did, some of the people I met, and show you some of the paintings and tell you some of their stories. So it began with booking up with a couple of bands, the Crickets, the Currys, Rachel Hillman were the only three people in my diary when I left England. But I knew that I would find more when I got here. And quickly after I arrived, I was directed to a lady called Carol Harris, who runs Wombat Sounds over in East Point. And she was wonderful. She's been teaching music here for 30 years. She's just great. We had a really nice chat together. I painted her playing. I hadn't really at that point figured out what I wanted to paint with these musicians. I just knew that I love music, all kinds of music. I listen to music when I paint. I've been interested in the idea of painting music itself before now, and I just wanted to kind of play around with some ideas around music and art and how the painting, how they overlap. And I wasn't sure what I wanted to paint, but I knew that I didn't want to paint album covers. I didn't want to paint people eating microphones. I didn't want to paint illustrations of song lyrics. I didn't want to go too literal with it. So I just wanted to record my experience of being around the musicians. So it began with Carol, really, in her studio in East Point. And she was rehearsing some classical guitar music that she plays for weddings on the beach and things like that. And it was great. She was so open. She just let me turn up with all my paints and get stuck in, as did everybody. It was incredible, really, how they welcomed me here. So Carol started to play, and I started to paint. And she was playing her guitar, and it was all fine. She was doing, what she always does, playing her guitar. And then about 2/3 of the way through the session, she just said, "Do you mind if I switch to mandolin?" And I said, "No, not at all, absolutely not," thinking, yes, I've just painted your guitar. But I wanted her to be doing what she does, as if I wasn't there. So I said, "Go ahead, change to the mandolin." And it was just really interesting seeing how she changed when she switched the instrument. Carol loves playing guitar. She's fantastic at it. But on that particular day, she just was having a bit more fun with the mandolin. It's a newer instrument to her. It was a bit of fun. She was more relaxed with it. And the way she held it was different. Her body language changed. I don't know, it was like she was loving the process a bit more, She was much more engaged with it somehow, connected with it. And in the process of scraping out the guitar and adding the mandolin to the painting, you can still see the neck of the guitar sticking out in the study. I realised that the thing I was really interested in painting was how the musicians feel about their music, and that beautiful, Kwong Ho calls it a state of grace, which I think is really lovely, that I think painters get there too occasionally, when everything flows and we just connect with the art form. And we witness this constantly in musicians, and I realised that the thing that I'm actually really interested in here is trying to capture that moment when they're completely absorbed in what they're doing, they've forgotten I'm there, and they and the music just become one. So the whole project became about connections between the musician and their music, and also this incredible connection throughout the community. Once I met Carol, she recommended somebody else, and suddenly I found this whole network of people who know one another through music. So Carol sent me to someone at a church who knew someone who played the piano, who also played the violin, who sent me to someone else who was having lessons, and it just went on and on. It was beautiful, and I could have stayed for a whole year and followed this fascinating thread of music through the community as it linked all the different aspects and cultures and age groups, and it's just incredible really when you think about music and what it means to people and how many different things it means to different people. So I became completely fascinated with what music is to these people and how they use it and how they feel when they're in it. So hopefully some of the paintings go some way to capturing what music means to these different people. So the painting of Carol started it off, and I thought I was going to draw people. I brought sketchbooks and charcoal with me from England for this project, and I thought I would be doing lots of quick sketches of people because obviously they're moving constantly when they're playing. So I knew it wasn't going to be easy to do finished paintings, but I think I've got so used to plein air painting that I felt like I was missing something without my paintbrush and my palette. So quickly I realised I was going to be painting these sketches rather than drawing them as such. I hadn't got enough panels with me because I'd anticipated doing drawings. So I got hold of a load of little white 9x12 panels. Normally I would work on a toned coloured ground, but I hadn't got time. So the result was this series of little sketches done onto white panels using oil paint, and I really enjoyed that process. It's something I'm going to keep doing. There's so many things that have come out of this residency that I will continue to take forward into my practice. I guess that's what residency's for, isn't it? You try new stuff, and for me it's just been such a great opportunity to spend time in my studio, spend time working from life with people. I just feel like I've grown in lots of directions at once. It's been exactly what I hoped it would be and a load more on top. It's just been great. So I came out with this series of little sketches. There's a wall full of them over here, which I'm going to take you over and have a look at. They were really quick. They were all done from observation. And they just record moments with different people. So here's my wall of sketches. I'll just pick out a couple that I really enjoyed. The Currys were great. They're good fun. They always have a big crowd. It was, really lively gigs. I couldn't see over the crowds at some of the gigs, so I had to get a stepladder and stand at the back of the bar or wherever we were. I didn't want to just do pub gigs, but I did a few of them. So there I was at the back on this high ladder painting the Currys at a gig. And this one I particularly like. This is Kat Bratton. This was before her gig, just in rehearsal. We were chatting about what music means to her, and some of the titles came out of those chats. This one is called Music is a Balm, which was Kat's phrase, and I just thought, how can I not use that? It's just the perfect phrase for what music means to her. So that was the title for that. And some of them have titles that are made up in that way because of something somebody said. Other ones like this one I really liked. Really quick one of Martha Garadi practicing her violin. I'll come on to the second version of that in a minute. But yeah, they were just really fun. Some of them ended up being more finished. This one of the Currys was an outdoor gig. We had a sudden drop in temperature that night. It was absolutely freezing here in Florida. So everyone was frozen. It was a really fun gig. We had to go and get them cups of hot water. We couldn't manage anything other than hot water, just to try and keep their hands warm so they could keep playing. So some of them ended up more finished. This one of Carol ended up more finished. This is her giving a lesson to a little guy called Cabe. Came with his dad for a lesson. But these were all done in situ. The bigger pieces are studio paintings that I did back in the UK, but most of the smaller ones were all done there and then. This one was fun. This is the Episcopal Church, Trinity Episcopal in Appalach, who have a choir. I thought it would be fun to paint a church choir. And out of that, there was another choir invitation from the Gospel Church. So that was really cool. I went to the church on a Sunday morning and painted the choir during the church service. That was great. That led to a bigger studio piece. So basically, I began with a series of sketches, and some of them, while I was making the sketches, I could tell that there was another painting to come. Some of them just felt like this one, I just loved the one of Kat as it was fine. But others, I felt like there was unfinished business, like I needed to come back and there was more to say with this. So a few of them, even while I was making the painting, I could feel the studio piece growing in my head, which is the way it should be. I love it when it's like that. But when I got back to my studio in England, the first thing I actually wanted to do was paint music itself. There was a couple of things I'd heard people playing that really interested me, and a project I did 20 years ago at art school was concerned with trying to turn one art form into another. And I'm interested in this whole translation from music into paint. So much of the language we use is the same. We talk about rhythm, tone, key, pitch, balance, harmony. So many things, words that we use when I'm teaching about painting are similar words that come up when I'm talking to the musicians. And they don't always mean exactly the same thing, but take pitch, for example. It kind of means the same thing. How light or dark is the painting? How light or dark is the feel of the music? They have a similar meaning in many instances. And I just got interested in the elements that cross over. So the first thing I did was played music and set a blank canvas on the easel and just tried to see what would happen. And it was really fun. It was really hard because there's nothing literal to hang anything on. There's no shapes, there's nothing. It was, just making it up. But I really enjoyed it, and it really pushed my skills as a painter. I had to really think about my ability to use edge, value, colour, brushwork, layers, textures, all of the visual tools came into play because I'd got to create something that had form and texture and depth and space in it. More than anything, I was trying to create space. I realised I hear lots of space in sound, and I wanted to find ways to convey that in paint. So I had a really fun period in the studio of just painting music, and I brought a couple of those little studies with me here. The two warmer coloured studies are based on the Crickets' Redbird song, which I really love. It's got lots of layers and syncopated rhythms and different instruments. There's a lovely little banjo riff in it. There's all sorts of really cool little bits in there that I could kind of feel like I could hang a painting off. So that was really fun, working with that. So I brought a couple of those paintings with me, and then I let those paintings inform some of the decisions about the studio pieces. So the Crickets one, I then went on to make a studio painting of them, and I wanted to use a similar palette because for me the music has a particular colour to it, if you like. So I wanted to carry that palette into the paintings I made of the Crickets, but I felt like the colours were too saturated on their own to put figures in front, so I had to soften them down and desaturate somewhat, which was fine. It was just really fun playing around with that and trying to figure out with little studies how I was going to compose it. So that led to this painting called Harmony. They were actually playing in the Bowery station, which no longer has so much live music, or certainly it's run by different people. So I kind of felt like I ought to paint the Bowery, because it was like the last gig there. But in the end, I thought, actually, I just wanted to paint them in their music and the way that the sound holds them together as a band and the way they interact. And so I called it Harmony because it again is a translation of that language that goes from music into painting. And I felt that they use close harmony in their voices. There's a close harmony in the colour scheme I came up with. And they're standing very close together so they can hear each other. So I wanted the whole thing to be about them being wrapped in the colour of the sound and with nothing particularly distinct behind them. So that led to this painting here. And also a painting of Emily from the Crickets, who was singing. And the colour scheme again influenced that portrait of her. That portrait was really just visually inspired, I guess. I just loved how she looked when she turned to the microphone, and she just had this timeless appearance with her hair up and this great outfit. The shapes and the colours were beautiful. I did originally put the microphone in, but I didn't like it. And then that led me to thinking about balance and shape. And this whole idea of painting music it's given me permission to just be a lot more playful in the background of these images and not be so committed to the truth, as it were. So I just played with some darker shapes and balance in this painting to try and create some rhythm behind her and again, space. A lot of it's been about space. So that was the Crickets series, if you like, apart from this one of Lauren Spring, who I met after the gig. So I went to the Crickets gig and I painted them playing at the Bowery, and then the next day Lauren met me for coffee. We had a lovely chat about music and her career in music, her life, what it means to her. And this happened, basically. We went down to the beach. She was practicing her violin. Her violin had been broken. She'd just got it back. So it was like watching this little reunion with her and an old friend. It was beautiful. And her affection for this instrument was really clear in her body language. This incredible sunset kicked off behind her, which was just pure luck. So I got a quick sunset study. I got a couple of, sort of quick sketches of Lauren while she was painting, and then this was a studio painting. But this was definitely one of the ones where I knew while it was happening, while I was there, that there was going to be a bigger studio piece out of it. It was just such a ridiculously beautiful image. It's definitely the most romantic painting I've ever made, by far. But why wouldn't you? It was just so idyllic. And it's so Lauren. She is beautiful and romantic and graceful, and it all just came together. She was playing beautiful Scottish airs and old kind of violin tunes, Celtic kind of feel to some of them. So with most of the paintings here that were influenced by a particular piece of music, we've put QR codes on the labels. And I'm going to try and do this somehow online. On my blog, I've already put them up. Links to the pieces of music so you can hear what I was hearing. Because when we came to mount the exhibition, it felt like I've taken music and put it into paint, but wouldn't it be fun if we could put the music back in there for you when you come to see the paintings? So that's what we're doing. These QR codes are here. When we remount the exhibition, whenever Forgotten Coast is back on again, we'll put these back up. But for you online, you can find those links through a blog, and we'll try and put them out on Facebook and stuff for you as well. Sometimes it's not the actual musician playing, like for this one, we've just linked to somebody playing a solo violin Scottish air. But in other instances, we are linking to the actual tracks from the bands and things wherever we can. So yeah, that was this painting, really. I just wanted it to be all about light and all about her connection with the violin and her connection with the coastline. She was talking about how she lives on the coast in Port St. Joe and often used to practice the violin outside because it seemed a bit strange painting someone playing violin on a beach. But no, apparently it's perfectly normal if you're Lauren and you live there. So it was really great seeing her in that environment. So that was the Crickets project. And then there was the Gospel Singers project. And I love gospel music. I just love the whole church singing thing. We do the plein air church here every year. It's just fantastic. The energy in it is just beautiful. And it's a different kind of musical energy to me. It's for a different purpose. So I asked the Gospel Singers and Valentina, why sing it? What do you get out of singing? Because it's so different to the hymns in the Episcopal Church. It's a different feel. So I asked what comes to you from singing gospel music, and they explained that they feel a closer connection to God, and that they feel it's a great way of sharing the gospel, but that it stays with them longer. Jackie Davies said it stays in her for days when she sings it, and I thought that was really lovely. So I began to look at what music means to people who sing it for religious purposes, and it seemed to me that as I was witnessing people singing gospel music, there were two states of mind that came across more clearly than others, I guess. And the first was prayer, that they're singing a prayer, basically, that there's this kind of stillness and a quietness in the person as they're singing it. So I wanted to capture that. So this was a painting of a lady who was singing at the Friendship Mission Church in Apalachicola, who so kindly invited me to join their service on the Sunday that I was here for my research trip. And I just loved the stillness in her. There's a quietude and a presence in her that I wanted to try and capture. And the flip side of that is the celebratory aspect of gospel music. I don't think there's any other kind of music that is quite as up when it's up. And Jackie Davies certainly personified that for me. So she invited me to join her and her husband and their son as they practiced their gospel songs in a church way out in Carabel. So I went all the way out there to meet them. They were amazing. They played for over 2 hours while I was messing around trying to paint them. So this painting of Jackie is a studio painting that came from a series of studies I made of her and her husband when they were singing. I feel slightly guilty that her husband didn't make it to the final cut. So it just seemed that this composition worked better with the figure on her own, and I wanted it to be all about the power of her and her feelings and her faith, and I wanted all that, and I wanted her singing into the space because she really fills the space when she sings. So I called it Praise, and I wanted it to be big and full of energy and the power of her. So this one of Martha was good fun. It came out of this one, which was the quick sketch I did while she was playing. But whenever I was painting the musicians, I recorded what they were playing on just a sound device so that I could play it back in my studio. And as I was painting Martha, actually I didn't paint her in the studio. As I was just thinking about what I might do in the studio off the back of the sketches here, I felt like I didn't particularly want to improve on these or tighten them up or redo them. I just felt like I wanted to play with the sound because Martha just played some really beautiful stuff for a few minutes on the violin. So I just played that soundtrack back and painted. And this time the colour was completely different. It was bright yellow and green. It was really fresh. There were some sharp edges in there and lots more small movements, which I guess is violin sound. And I didn't really think that much about it. I was surprised when the colours came out so bright. Then I looked it up. Now, maybe I knew this somewhere in the back of my mind, but it turns out she was playing the Four Seasons, Vivaldi, and she was playing spring. So somehow we've ended up with spring colours. So this was the same sketch that I just painted over again on top of the sound of the music. And that was something I thought I wanted to do more of, but I just ran out of time. But I think I really liked that idea of, so I could have maybe done Kat with some music behind her or different people, but just not enough time to get all that done. And so then the last one to talk about really probably is Rachel Hillman, who was just a delight to work with, a fantastically talented young lady who writes songs. And I reached out to her and asked her if I could meet her somewhere that meant something to her, because I know she writes. So I said, where do you write? Where would you be when you're writing music? Can we be in your flat, in your garden, wherever? And she straight away said, on the dock at Apalachicola is where I want to meet you. So I was like, fine, that's easy. So here we are. And she just sat down in the late afternoon sun with her little book and her pen, her purple pen, and wrote this song. And it was just the most delightful afternoon. It was warm. There were people wandering by talking to us. And it was just fascinating listening to her process as she wrote this song, changing lyrics, changing melody, layering things, trying different things out. We were there for a couple of hours. It was just absolutely wonderful. And this music drifting out across the water. And every time the birds came by, she would stop and watch the birds. So I realised that I needed some birds coming in somewhere. And somehow they became sort of symbolic of the sound as well. There's another one I did. I'll just grab that, actually. There's one here where I just used little coloured marks to mess around with this was a recorder player in the church, and I was just playing with the idea of putting marks down to represent the notes, so I called it notes. And I guess the birds in a way ended up doing that in the painting of Rachel. So there were several versions of this painting. The one that I made on location, the initial study didn't make it into the exhibition because I just couldn't bring everything. I included two other versions, small 8x8 studies that I made for this painting. One with a higher eye level, one with a lower one, and then the final painting. Just kind of sums up a warm, relaxed afternoon in Apalachicola. I definitely wanted the book in there, and I loved how the sun went across the book to kind of tell the story of a passage through this book, of the journey of her writing the music. And it brings it very much into the foreground, because that was... a lot of the musicians were playing music they'd written themselves, but I hadn't actually witnessed somebody writing music while I was playing them. So I really wanted to make that part of the story of this painting. I'm thrilled that Rachel has used the image as her album cover for the album she was writing at the time. So it's all coming full circle. And Rachel should have been here to play the song that she was writing when we painted this for the reception. So hopefully when we redo the reception at some point in the future, we'll be able to make that happen again. But the whole project has just been hugely satisfying, really, really enjoyable. It's really pushed me as a painter. It's stretched me, which is great. It's exactly what I hoped it would do. I said to Mark a year ago, I feel like I would like a big project. I want something to get my teeth into, and I'd like to do some figures. And then, lo and behold, I get invited to come and do this. It's just been absolutely fantastic. I've loved it. Most of the paintings are still available on the Forgotten Coast Plein Air website. They're there for sale. If you're interested in purchasing one of them and you don't know where to start, just message me or message the Forgotten Coast. Do reach out, get in touch. If you'd like high resolution images, if you need any help or any information at all, just give us a shout. We're here to help. Also, if you recognise anyone in the paintings, if you know their social media tags or anything, let's tag, share, like, follow. Let's spread this to everybody who's involved in the project, because I haven't been able to reach all of those people, and because we're not having the physical reception, they can't all come and see all of the paintings. So I'm really keen to try and make sure everyone gets to see the work now it's all up. So thank you for your help with that. The musicians have just made it. They've just been so open to what I wanted to do, made me so welcome. They've been so interested in the process and positive about the work I've made. They've just been fantastic. Everyone here, the board, the Forgotten Coast Coalition, has just been incredibly supportive. The whole experience has been 100% positive, and I've had the best time, and I'm so honoured to have been given the opportunity to do this. I hope we'll get to share it in person at some point, but thank you so much for joining me online and giving me the chance to talk about my work. It's been a joy. Thank you.